Alright guys, we have till 22.12, which is enough time to come over to finish chapter 2 and get through chapter 3 and this after tomorrow. I'm actually on chapter 9, but I have to be back for you. So let me go back to thingy, and I have drank only a bit, but it's made it a bit better. We'll go from the last line of chapter 2 that we read last night. Well, Justin said, did the shopping work? What did you get? Nothing, Mum said. I gave all that to Bob. And she grinned even more. You gave away food, Justin said, for nothing? Mum nodded. Had to get Bob on our side, didn't her? And it's worked. The real shopping starts next week. She spent the whole Sunday has picking carrots and blackcurrants. They were beetroots too, from his allotment, and new potatoes. When she came back, the car was loaded with boxes and carrier bags. Excuse me. On Monday morning, she drove down to the ward again. This time she went very early, while Chalk and I were still in bed. She handed out fruit and vegetables to all the drivers before they set off for the day. See what you can get from these, she said, and keep them to yourselves, and keep some for yourselves. It worked like magic. Fresh fruit and vegetables had almost disappeared from the shops, but lots of people had things in their store cupboards, and they were delighted to swap. It wasn't very much at a time, but the drivers brought back something every week, and gradually it mounted up. Packages of flour and rice, tins of ham, and pieces of cheese, and carrots of long life milk cartons. We hadn't seen things like that for months, but Mum wouldn't let us eat them all. We have to store these, she said, in case things get worse. So gradually, one packet and a tin at a time, our food cupboard started filling up, and then one of the drivers found a farmer who was ready to swap meat for flour and sugar. So some of the packages came out of the cupboard, and we had giant meat in the freezer. Mum just started growing vegetables in our garden as well, so there was more to swap. For the next 3 years, we always had plenty to eat, even if it was multi-vegetable stew. There was food on our plates every day, and stashed away in the kitchen to last 6 months or more. I heard some kids at school talking about being hungry, and I knew I was really lucky. It was a good, safe feeling. We could look after ourselves. And that was what Mum said after the raid. The police won't come, and the interest won't pay out, so we have to look out for ourselves. No one else is going to do it. She made Justin fit new locks on the door, and they made a secret store cupboard under the stairs, hidden behind a false wall. Mum was determined the raiders weren't going to catch us out again. She knew things were getting worse all the time. It was on the news every evening. Two or three times a week, they were interviews with family who'd been raided. But they were much worse than us. You could see that by the spare frightened faces. What were we going to do? They said. There's no food in the shops. How are we going to survive? On the day when there was nothing about the raids on the news, they were usually pictures of riots. The riots started in London, but soon they were happening all over the country. Crowds of angry people marched through the cities with banners saying, "Smash the skitterers," and outlaw hoarding. They broke into shops and more houses and grabbed whatever they could find. Turkey insisted on watching it all. Mum tried to stop him, of course, but every time she turned the TV off, he screamed and screamed until she put it on again. He was obsessed with the news, and every time he saw pictures of people in masks, he thought it was the man who raided our house. Are they coming? He said. Where's Luton? Or Birm? Or Ingeborg? Or whatever the latest result report was about. Are they coming back? Justin always said no. There's hundreds of miles away, Toka, and I painted over that nasty graphic. We're absolutely safe now. They won't come here again. That was rubbish, of course. Yes, there was white paint on the top of those ugly black letters, but they were already showing through again. I could see them, and so could Toka. No wonder he was afraid. When I went up to bed, he was never asleep now, like he used to be. He always wide awake, staring into the dark, listening for the next raid, and I listened to it, planning what I would do next time the raiders came. But things never happen the way you expect. Chapter 3. So I'm going to read until chapter 5. Let's see. There's a one for chapter 4 and... Never mind. Let's get on with reading chapter 3. The next gang of raiders didn't come at night, and they didn't come to our house. They turned up at the Ultimates one Sunday afternoon when Toka and I were at school. There was no one at the Ultimates except Grandpa and his friend Les Benty. Grandpa was over their side, hopping round his bean, but just had finished work. He hung around for a few minutes, chatting to Grandpa, but then walked off towards the gate. He was nearly there when a couple of cars came searching in, almost knocking him over. They pulled up, and half a dozen men jumped out. They yelled to Grandpa, telling him to get away. Grandpa wouldn't abandon his precious vegetables. That's how he was. He didn't give in to anyone. When he saw the raiders, he waved his hoe in the air, shouting at them to keep away from his patch. Les said they just laughed and headed straight for him. By the time the police had arrived, the raiders had gone. They trampled all over the Trentons and taken everything worth eating. They left Grandpa lying face down on his beans. The doctors told Ud he died of a heart attack. That is just so awful. After that, everything changed again. Once Grandpa was dead, Mum and Justin realised how much he'd done to look after Grandma Grace because she needed it. She can't live on her own, Mum said. Not the way she is now, and I'm not putting her into a home, even if we can find one that's still open. Just remember, I'll look after her myself. Our house was too small for Grandma Grace to come and live with us, so we all moved in with her instead, and I still had to share a room with Toka. Mum decided that growing vegetables was more useful than going out to work, so she gave up her job and took Grandpa's garden and the Ultimate. She and Justin dug up the garden, they got rid of the roses, broke up the patio and chopped the decking. Into firewood. They planted vegetables everywhere, and Mum started looking out for some more chicken. I can't manage it all on my own, she said. Everyone has to help. That meant Toka and Justin and me. After that, if I wanted to play football on Saturdays, I'd have to get up at 6 o'clock so I could do 3 hours reading before I left. Talk had to pick the sports and empty Cheers bucket, and Justin spent most of the evening in the ultimate after work. How did Grandpa manage it all on his own, without any help? Sometimes I went into his shed and stared at the rows of tools behind the workbench. They were still hanging neatly in their places on the wall. I expect the tools he saw mentioning his bike. Those were in a big canvas roll with loops and pockets to keep everything tidy. Square pads and inter tubes, tuning levels and adding keys, grey cables and spanners and haggard type. Everything he needed was there, all neatly organised. I knew those tools too. They reminded me of all the time I spent watching Grandpa work on the bike. He always made sure I could see what he was doing, and he liked it when I asked questions. I thought about that a lot, and sometimes I took the tools out of the wall and laid them along the bench, making myself remember what each one was and how to use it. One day, Mum came in while I was standing there. I thought she was going to shout at me because I should have been picking beans, but she didn't. She stood and looked at the workbench for a moment without saying anything. Then she grinned. "You're nearly as tall as he was now. I reckon you could ride his bike if you adjust the saddle." The bike was on its stand in a corner of the shed. Getting dusty, I looked across it. "Think so?" I said. Mum nodded. "Let's get it out tomorrow. If you fix it up, you can hitch on the little trailer of his and take the vegetables down to Bob's. Save me a bit of petrol." She patted my arm and went off to dig some carrots. I didn't just raise the saddle. I stripped down the whole bike. All it really needed was a new brake pad and a bit of polish, but I wanted to make sure I remembered everything, so I oiled the chain and loosened the grey cables. Then I replaced both brakes pads and neatly from the front wheel and cleaned the whole thing until it glittered. The shed was full of cobwebs and dust, so I covered the bike with old sacks when I wasn't using it. It looked as though there was nothing there except a heap of rubbish, and I loved pulling over the sacks and seeing the gleam of the bike in the dark its corner. I kept the tool roll under my bed. Don't ask me why. It was like Toka, I suppose, with his precious shoebox. If something was really important, it's good to have it stashed away in a safe place. I wish I could take the bike up there too. I've been delivering vegetables to Bob for a couple of months. When the real disaster happened, it started with a massive crash in the middle of the night. I woke up with a jump and heard lots of shouting and thundering downstairs. Talk was already half across the room. Even though he wasn't properly awake, I grabbed him and pulled him to the bed with me, tucking the duvet cover around to stop him shivering. "Is it the raiders?" he whispered. "Have they come back?" There was another crash and a sound of breaking glass. "Was that the TV or the computer screen?" "Don't worry," I whispered. "They'll just take the food and go away like last time." I crossed my fingers in the dark, hoping it was true. Tucker snuggled closer with his elbows in my chest. They won't come up here." "Not if we stay quiet," I said. I listened to the noises, trying to work out what was going on. "I'm scared," Tucker said. His voice was starting to wobble. "I don't want to stay here. I want Mum." I tried to keep him quiet, but that just got him more upset, so I gave in and slipped out of bed. "All right, let's go and find her." Tucker grabbed my arm. "But suppose they hear us. Suppose nothing," I said. "No supposing," I said. "Come on." "Wait a minute," Tucker Mum shot across the room and covered under his bed for his shoebox. He hugged it to his chest, and we darted across the landing to Mum's room. She and Justin were out of bed too. Justin was half dressed, and Mum was hanging onto his shoulders to stop him going downstairs. don't be stupid, she was saying. How will we manage if you get yourself shot? Someone should stop them, Justin said, but he didn't shake her off the way Dad would have done. Joker ran across the room and flung himself at Mum's knees. They won't come up here all day. They won't come and get us. Mum sat down on the bed and pulled him onto her lap. It's all right, she whispered. It's okay. She cuddled him and buried her face in his hair. But it wasn't okay. A couple of minutes later, we heard heavy feet thumping up the stairs. Mum put an arm around me too. Keep quiet, she whispered. Don't annoy them. The razors headed straight for us. Thinking the door opened so hard it crashed into the wall. There were half a dozen of them. Heavy, tall men with packs on their backs and guns in their hands. There was a second of silence, as if the wood stopped moving. Then Mum said, You won't find any food in here. The men didn't bother to reply. One of them held a gun on us, while the others rampaged through the room, wrenching the cupboard open and pulling out all the drawers. They just started on the wardrobe when Grandma Grace suddenly appeared in the doorway. What's going on? She said painfully. Are they making a film, Alison? The gun that was pointing at Justin had whirled around and jabbed her in the neck, and the man who was holding it made a horrible stabbing noise. I thought he was going to shoot her. For heaven's sake! Mum said angrily. Can't you see she's got dementia? She doesn't know what she's saying. She went across the room and hugged Grandma Grace as if the gun wasn't there. You want to keep your wife in order, the man growled at Justin. Oh, she'll get you all in trouble. The others were going through Mum's jewellery box, but there's nothing that worth stealing. One of them gave a quick, impatient nod. Let's get out. And they headed for the door. But just when we thought it was over, the last one turned round in the doorway. He wiped out his phone and photographed us all. What's that for? Mum said sharply. Justin pulled at her arm. Alison became. I want to know what he's doing, Mum said. You can't just. The man laughed nastily, waving his phone in their face. Going to be internet stars, aren't you, darling? Take a look at yourselves on set posts when your computer's fixed. But others roared with laughter, and Mum stared forcefully forward, reaching for the phone. What do you mean? Give me that. No, Justin said. Alison! He caught hold of Mum's hand to pull her back, but it was too late. Suddenly the men weren't laughing anymore. They weren't leaving either. They were pushing their way back into the room and grabbing at Mum and Justin. Grandma Grace started screaming and the men laughed again, but it was a different kind of laughter now, fierce and ugly, and Justin was shouting and throwing himself at them. I didn't know what was going to happen, and then Mum said, very loud and clear, Matthew, Toker, don't look, shut your eyes, both of you. I pulled Toker's head into my lap and leaned across him, dragging the duvet covers and tucking it round tightly, and then I did what Mum said. I didn't look, I didn't see anything, nothing at all. After a long time, Mum came and lifted the duvet cover away. It's all right, she said in a strange, flat voice. They've gone. She was very pale, and she had her dressing gown clutched round her body as if she was cold. Justin was on the other side of the room, leaning against the door frame. He turned round, and there was blood running down his face from a big jar underneath his right eye. Something had happened to his cheek as well, because it was weird. It was a weird shape, and he was crying. Mum heaved a long, slow sigh. Then she went across the room and put her hands around him, having them into place as if they were almost too heavy to lift. We're still alive, she said. That's all. That's the main thing. Justin dropped his head on her shoulder, leaving a bloodstain in the dressing gown. I'm useless, he said. Don't talk about it, Mum said warmly. She looked around for Grandma Grace and gave her bright brown feminine smile. Everything's fine, Mother. You can go back to bed now. Grandma Grace gave her a long, puzzled stare, then she shifted off to her bedroom, and Mum turned to talk at me. No, I said quickly. I don't want to go back to bed. Please, Mum, I need to see what they've done downstairs. She hesitated for a moment and then nodded. as if it was too much effort to argue. All right, let's go and look at the damage. So I'll read this on Wednesday. So this book I'm going to be doing on Wednesday as well. But for this book, because I don't know how many chapters in this book, I'm going to have to see. There's about 23 chapters. I'm already on chapter 9, but I read it back for you guys. So, how many have we read? We've read chapter 3 to pretty sure it was chapter 2, and then we read from chapter 2 to the end of chapter 3. So, bye guys.